Ladies and gentlemen, get ready to embark on a journey like no other. Welcome to the Glum Lot podcast,
your go-to destination for a unique blend of recovery and discovery.
I'm Brett.
And I'm Mark. And in this podcast, we will endeavor to create a safe and uplifting space for our guests and listeners to share their stories with sincerity and a touch of humor.
Remember, we are not a Glum Lot. The Glum Lot podcast is more than just a source of entertainment. It's a beacon of hope, proving that even in the darkest moments, recovery is possible. Every story we share carries the power to inspire positive change.
So buckle up, get ready to listen, and join us in discovering the strength that lies within every individual's journey. This is the Glum Lot Podcast, where humor meets hope. All right, welcome to episode number 56, Brett.
56.
We are glad you are here, and we are glad I am here.
Yes,
how's that?
We are just glad.
We're just goddamn glad. So we're always looking for new guests. If you want to be on the show, or you know somebody who you think would be good for the show, give us an email at theglumlotpodcast at gmail.com.
And they
We're always don't,
looking
for people.
We can talk to them remotely. If
That's
they
right.
Can't make
Yeah,
it
we
to
can
our
do this
studio.
over the iPhone,
Absolutely.
and it comes out really nice too.
Yeah.
So, also make sure you join the Facebook group. It's really growing. And the Glum Lot Podcast at Facebook. It's really growing, and I think we're up to 200. But that's where you get the first drop on the episodes and all that stuff. So.
And if you found this podcast helpful, please let others know.
Yeah, share it.
Share it like crazy.
Share it, yes. So what's on your mind?
In a world.
Oh, yeah, I've heard this before.
that, we struggle right now because everything seems to be more expensive, right? Groceries are more expensive. Anything you can think of is more expensive. And how fortunate it is that there is one thing that has not gone up in price at all. And that's AAA. AAA.
That's funny because
that was the Canadian AA.
I just got my AAA bill in the mail, and it is higher. So
you got to love that. But seriously, AA.
AA, I know. And you know what? People put $1 in the basket, and I remember Mike R. from one of our first episodes said, you know what? It's been that way forever. Shouldn't we be putting $2 in the basket?
Right.
And then I heard somebody else just a week ago say, I heard a recommendation that you put in the amount of money for one bottle of beer.
Yeah.
Every meeting, and that's like got to be what?
Oh yeah,
$4 or $5
ranges,
or whatever.
Yeah.
But,
by now, yeah.
But the bottom line is, you put in whatever you can afford.
That's right. But even then, it's free.
It really is.
And there is a cost, right? We have to.
Sure.
There is a little bit.
There are
cost.
expenses.
That's right. But the return is incredible.
Right. The return is the profit.
That's right.
And the profit is sobriety.
That's right.
And our sobriety, as small as it is for us, makes the world a better place.
Darn right.
It does. And,
right.
just like the active alcoholic, there's a ripple effect from out to family, out to friends, out to employers, out to passerbys in some cases.
Yeah.
There's a ripple effect with sobriety. And, people might not see it, but it's very evident.
And the
really.
follow-up to Drop the Rock, the Hazelden book, the ripple effect talks exactly about that.
Yep. And so don't sell yourself short.
No
Getting
way.
sober is important not only to you, your family, your employer. It's also important to the world, and it really is.
Yeah.
And sharing that, boy, I mean, if they say each one teach one. What if each one teaches 5 ones?
Right.
I mean, that's how this thing grew to a really astronomical proportion, but it still has a long way to go. There's a lot of growth of
my
left,
gosh,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is.
So don't worry about cost. Just head on over.
Right. Drop $1 if you can drop $1. Drop 5 if you can drop 5.
That's right.
Whatever,
That's
right? With that, we have a guest today who I've never met, I don't think. His name is Jacob.
Yep.
Apparently, we've been at some of the same meetings, and when I see him, I'll probably go, I've seen that guy.
Yeah, well, he's fairly new.
Oh, is he?
Yeah,
how new?
Not as far as sobriety goes,
Right.
but he's new to our meeting, and he was there a couple weeks ago, and he enjoyed it.
Nice.
And so he drives in from a little bit away to come there, and I got talking to him. And one of our other guests had spoken with him prior about his experience with being on the podcast and said, hey, you've got a good story. Why don't you just see if they would be interested? And guess what?
We're interested.
We're interested.
Yeah.
And so therefore, we're going to have Jacob.
Jacob. Jacob, welcome to the Glum Lot podcast. We are glad to have you here with us.
Yeah, hey, Jacob.
Thank you, guys. I'm really happy to be here.
Good, good. And we'd like to start with your sobriety date.
Sure. It is May 10th. Let me get this right. May 10th,
See, I told you.
2009.
Okay.
Okay, May 10, 2009.
15 years.
Yeah.
I got it right this
Very
time.
nice.
Yep.
And we like to start with, from the beginning, what was your first experience with alcohol and or drugs?
Like the nitty-gritty
The
details.
nitty-gritty. So I grew up in an alcoholic family. My father was an alcoholic, and I saw what it did to him, and it was part of the reason why my parents split up. And I have a lot of memories of as a kid coming down to our sort of living room at night, seeing him nursing a tall boy of Stella. I grew up in London, England, so he was a lager drinker. He used to drink Stella Artois.
Nice.
And,
So was he British?
He's British and American like me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does he have the accent?
Yes, he does, because he still lives
Jolly
there.
good.
Jolly good.
Oh, he's still there. Yeah,
Pip,
okay.
pip, cheerio.
No shit. London, that's cool.
Yeah, so, and as a kid, I thought to myself, I don't want to, grow up like that, because I realized what it did. But I wasn't much of a partier in high school, but I do remember a very distinct summer afternoon when I was probably about 14 or 15. My mom didn't really drink. I wasn't a big drinker. She liked the occasional Guinness, but it was the late 90s, early 2000s, and it was when the malt pops were big. So like your Smirnoff Ices.
Yeah. The
Yep.
malt beverages.
Yep,
yes.
yep. And she had a
Zima.
Oh yeah, yep. She had a Sky malt beverage in the fridge, and it had a blue bottle. And I remember, and I just
And who can resist a
yeah.
royal blue bottle like that?
oh yeah,
I'm just saying.
Now, what was the drinking age over there back then?
it's 18.
Oh, it
Yeah,
still is?
Yeah. But I moved to the States when I was in middle school. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So you're over here by then.
Yeah,
So you drink that Sky.
Yeah,
Right.
malt beverage.
So what happens?
Nothing really.
Do you catch
I mean,
a buzz?
No, not at all. I'm
No
like,
shit.
this is what is this?
Are people making this
crap?
up?
Yeah.
Well, it was kind of wuss stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, let's
Yeah,
be
come on.
honest.
What about the first time you caught a buzz?
Yeah, so then the story goes, I didn't drink in high school. I was that one friend that was always wagging my finger at other friends that were getting drunk and throwing parties all the time. But so when I went to college, that's when it really started to take off. So probably, I would say maybe a party my freshman year.
What would you attribute that to? Just new surroundings, new people, and trying to fit in?
Yeah, very much so. And I wasn't a beer drinker at that point, which is ironic, and that would be a big part of my story later. But just went to a party and had too much to drink and came back to the dorms acting a fool, and my friends, tried to just play it off like, oh, he's just acting drunk.
So the feeling you got was?
Yeah, I mean, the feeling was those early days, it really didn't do very much. It was more of a social thing to fit in. But then over time, it began more and more in terms of how far can I push this?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't really fall in love with the feeling
No.
immediately.
No. And in fact, the first couple times I had a beer, I hated it. I hated the taste. I hated kind of the aftertaste. But it was the vibes that went along with drinking in college at the time. You know, the fact that that's what people did. It made me feel,
Part of?
Yeah, part of. It made me feel a little more like I belonged, in my peer group at college. So, but then later, then things really started to take off, I would say. I fell into a drinking crowd, of guys, and then I quickly became the guy that would, push the limits,
Getting competitive.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get Jacob to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever have a stained glass window?
No.
No? Oh man, that was big in my day.
The hell's a stained glass window?
You get because I was up in northern near the Canadian border.
Yeah.
And you had Labatt, you had Molson, they all different colored glass. So as you would consume them, you would put them. We had big sliding windows, and you would just fill it in with all the bottles, all the glass bottles, and you had a stained glass window.
This is part of the college thing?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Never heard of that before.
Oh,
I'm learning.
I contributed something new.
Yeah.
How about that?
Well, I didn't drink a lot.
So anyways, back to you.
That's enough about you. What
Yeah.
about me?
But from the beginning, I mean, I was really pushing the limits, and it's funny because I told myself in high school I wasn't going to drink because I knew what it did to my dad and to our family. And he's been in AA. I remember as a kid going to AA meetings with him.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he over in UK?
In London, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he bounced in and out?
No, he's still sober today. He got sober in the late 90s, right before I moved over to the States with my family, and I just kind of felt like I'm not going to drink until I'm old enough to handle all the responsibilities that come along with drinking. See, like I'm already thinking alcoholically,
Right? Yeah.
Because
normal people don't do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People that don't have a problem with alcohol don't try to say
Did
that.
it occur to you that you might have the bug? You might have the genetic predisposition?
Was that ever told to you by him or anything?
No. And in retrospect, I think it probably should have. But, I remember going to a party in college. This is a very vivid memory, and just, bringing a big 1 liter Smirnoff vodka bottle and just filling half of it up with orange juice. And I thought, I can drink this entire screwdriver. What a badass.
It's just a big one.
Yeah, this is what normal college kids do.
Massive screwdriver.
Wow.
Yeah.
So just already pushing the limit.
So how are your grades?
Well, we know this as alcoholics, right? We're really good at kind of concealing our behavior and living that
I
double.
definitely wasn't. I got a 0.1. They gave me credit for swimming.
Yeah, I mean, with me, when I was in college, I was a bartender and I was big alky, but I was a 4.0.
Yeah.
I would get my shit done. That was job one. Yeah. I figured as long as I did that, my drinking was safe.
I was at Jekyll and Hyde, and
Sure.
That's I think how it went unchecked for so long because I wasn't having the consequences yet. And so I was a binge drinker. I didn't drink all the time.
Yeah.
But when I drank, there was no stopping.
Lights out.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
plus
definitely.
you're in that element where it's accepted.
Right.
And you're even kind of like a fucking rock star.
Well,
right?
Yeah. I was the cool RA that would drink with my my
RA,
students
nice.
on like the floor, the kids on my floor. There's a great story of me going out to a party and coming into one of my students' rooms like drunk, waking him up, and then he became one of my best drinking buddies. And he told that story all the time. Oh, remember when your RA was drunk and came in? I was the guy that would look the other way because I was breaking all the rules on the side as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that made you popular.
Right.
Yeah, I had one.
Everybody wanted to be on your flour.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, yes.
Yep.
So, but your
Did
grades
he
are
wake
okay.
you up in the middle of the night, too?
It got weird, man.
Follow me.
So your grades are okay?
Yeah, no, they were good. They were good.
Well, good for you.
You graduated?
Yeah, no, I did. And then I stayed on right afterwards to do a master's degree. And those last sort of, ages 21 to 23 is when I did all of my drinking damage. I was about 24 when I stopped drinking. So
you're pursuing a master's and drinking more than ever?
yes.
Did you have more time on your hands doing the master's?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say there's more freedom.
Right, it's
there.
almost like part-time school, right?
Oh, for sure.
You're kind of on your own a lot and all that shit. So
Yeah.
you're drinking more. Now, do you drink? Were you a bar drinker?
Yeah, I'd go out on a Friday night, Thursday night. I mean, Thirsty Thursday.
Yeah. There's a name for every day. I know.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
what about frat house stuff, parties, and all that?
It's funny you bring that up because I thought once or twice about joining a fraternity, but I thought to myself, those are the amateurs. Those are the guys that they don't know how to drink. Come
Right,
on.
they'll have a frat party and get too drunk.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't know
Or
what they're doing.
or try to make it seem like they know how to drink to impress their buddies. They're not like me. Come on.
I'm a professional.
Yeah.
Way
Get out of the way.
above.
Yeah, we used to laugh on like New Year's Eve, amateur night.
Oh, yeah.
When everybody would get fucked up and do stupid shit, and you're like, they don't drink every day. They don't know how to do this,
Yeah.
Boy, not my time.
So you graduate with the master's.
Yeah.
Impressive.
Yep.
Wow,
Yep.
you made it through.
Well, not
Yeah.
before there were some stops along the way where I seriously should have, had these moments of what the hell are you doing? Like, for instance, I'd be drinking at a bar and I'd wake up from a blackout getting the shit kicked out of me because I punched some guy in the bar, and then all of a sudden I'm on the sidewalk and his friends came after me. Just bar fights, things like that.
So that's the other side of you that came out.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't the norm, right?
Right, that's right.
So you talk about the Jekyll and Hyde thing.
Oh, yeah.
That was you.
Yeah, definitely. And then Kevin Hart came to, the comedian came to my school.
You punched him? No. Sorry.
Oh, man, how did you know?
Right. And so the listener knows, Jacob's, what he was, like 6'4"?
Yeah, 6'4". Good
He's
guess.
a big dude.
Good guess.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I wouldn't want to fuck with him if I was drinking. I'd be like, you're good.
Yeah, right.
So little Kevin Hart comes to your school.
Yeah, and I think it's, my buddies, my drinking friends and I go to this concert or show on campus at the student center, and I'm blitzed at this point, and I'm heckling Kevin Hart from the balcony, and just really laying into him, and at one point he stops the show. Can I swear? Like,
oh yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, this is a little. This is
It's okay.
Bring it on, brother.
Okay, so I'm heckling Kevin Hart so badly, and he's relatively unknown at this point. He's opening for Paul Mooney, rest in peace.
Okay, yeah.
So he's the headliner, and I'm heckling him from the balcony. And at one point, he turns to the crowd, points at me, and he said, if that guy's dick was as big as his mouth, he'd have a bitch sitting next to him right now. And everyone turns around, points at me, and starts laughing. And I don't know what the hell's going on. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm so drunk.
Yeah. I'm a celebrity.
But and then after that, my drinking buddies think it's a great idea to give me the keys to my car to drive myself home.
That night?
That night.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And so I had one of these, sort of bottom moments, but not really. Mm-hmm. I'm driving, and I'm blacked out at this point because I don't really remember what's happening.
Yep.
And I wake up from a blackout driving my car back to my off-campus apartment. And I must have hit a curb or something. I'm down a tire. One of my tires is popped.
Must hit a curb or somebody.
Right. And so I'm coming home and I'm just, it's almost like I completely sobered up in that moment. And I thought to myself, you got to get home.
That's scary when you wake up and
if nothing
your
up, I can
body's
just make it
doing
home.
things. And It's just weird.
Yeah.
And
I'm
jarring.
I'm a couple blocks home, and I'm like, you just have to get home. This is really, really bad. Just get home. Don't let anything happen to you. And I didn't sleep much that night, and I'm sure other people on your show can talk about of the terror of doing things when we're blacked out.
It's disturbing.
I thought the police were going to come the next morning because I had run somebody over.
There are many mornings that I walked out to my car and examined it, and I'm like, please don't let there be any dents. Please don't let there be any fucking hair, or any kind of clothing remnants in it, because we don't know. It was my first blackout ever. I was living with a girl, and the last stop I made was always at this one bar that was maybe 2 blocks from where we lived. Because I figured on the way home I could stop there and get as fucked up as I want. It's only a 2-block drive.
Of course, that's what
anybody. And I was bartending,
about.
and the bartender at this bar used to come to my bar, and I'd give him free drinks. When I went to his bar, he'd give me free drinks. And I was a fairly young guy, maybe 24, and he's like, "Do you drink ouzo?" And I'm like, "What the fuck is ouzo?" He goes, "It's a Greek liqueur. It tastes like licorice."
Sounds dangerous.
And I'm like, I'll try it. And he goes, "You light it on fire." So him and I drank flaming shots of ouzo, which gives you, people always say like tequila gives you a different kind of buzz. Ouzo, very different kind of buzz. So I drank like maybe six shots of ouzo, and this is the end of the night for me. And the next day, I drank the 6th shot of ouzo. The next day, I wake up on the couch of my girlfriend's house, and she goes, "What the fuck was wrong with you last night?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She goes, 2 o'clock in the morning, you're banging on my bedroom window.
Oh, my God.
Saying that your key doesn't work and the door is locked. And so I get up and I let you in, and your keys are literally in the door. They're in the fucking key slot. And I let you in, and you just walk in and mumble something and fall on the couch. And I'm like,
God, I'm having
but I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I don't remember even leaving the bar.
Yeah.
I did that 6th shot, and I went black. And then I'm like, what happened? Where did I go? Who did I fucking kill? What
body's on
And
autopilot.
it scared the shit out of me. And I'm like, all right, I'm not drinking. And I drank that
And
night.
for normal people, that's when it starts to get scary,
Yeah.
right? Because you think to yourself, I got to get this under control. And that lasted for me maybe 2 weeks.
Okay, it lasted for me maybe 2 hours.
Holy shit!
I literally went out and drank that night.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I just got to take it easy.
Yeah.
But that was the first of many blackouts. And man, they never stopped being scary. But you can't, like they say, you can't scare a drunk.
Right.
I'm scared, when that happens, and I'm scared, and then an hour later I'm not as scared, and an hour later I'm thinking about drinking, and an hour later I'm drinking. Just saying, well, just
And
be cool.
everything's right in the world again.
Yeah, and man, it's a vicious cycle. So that was your first blackout? Or no? it wasn't your
No, that
first?
was maybe
That was just
second
very,
or third,
very
yeah,
consequential
very-
one for you?
Yeah, I mean, and the idea, in my head was I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't push the limits like this anymore. But of course, I was powerless to stop.
Yeah.
Because again, and my tolerance at that point had just gone way up.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even feeling a buzz after
Are you
a couple of
are you
drinks
at this
anymore.
at this time? Are you a beer drinker? Are you,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can consume a lot of beer. You're a big dude. You
Yeah.
got a fucking very high tolerance.
I'd be
Oh.
I'd be the guy coming to a Super Bowl party with an 18 pack and
For you.
and not sharing.
Yeah.
Right.
And being proud
I'm going to
of-
need it all.
Yeah. That's all for me, guys.
This is all for me in the first half.
And it almost becomes a sport to see how much you can fit in.
But
and talk about it.
Other than the Jekyll and Hyde beatings and the blackout, any other consequences? Law? Any
Oh yeah.
DWIs? Any
Oh
shit
yeah.
like that?
No, and this is and it's funny. I mean, and I drove drunk dozens of times,
Yeah.
and on a college campus, you go around and it's almost normal weekend behavior.
Yeah.
But I never got pulled over. What did me in actually, and this is actually a great story, is I had a lot of misplaced rage, while I was in my young teens and 20s because I didn't have the great relationship with my now sober, still sober at that time, alcoholic father at that point. He wasn't really in my life and living in another country. And, here I am, this poor college kid who can hardly afford, money for textbooks. And I'm like, come on, Dad, help me out here. And so when I would drink, I used to like to vandalize stuff, really and particularly people's cars. And so,
Just
yeah.
for fun?
Oh, yeah, just to blow off some steam.
yeah,
right?
okay, yeah.
And I used to, the one thing that I used to really do was, it's almost silly to admit this. I used to wear big construction boots because where I went to school, if it's cold. We get 2 feet of snow on the ground.
Yep.
And I would kick off people's side mirrors with these.
That was your trademark move?
That was my thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was you getting like the crane stance? and
Yeah,
From Karate Kid.
Daniel San.
Yeah.
like Chun-Li from Street Fighter or something.
Did you do a roundhouse?
Yeah.
No
And just
shit.
and I would just go to town on
Style
people's
points.
cars. Yeah. And again, all of my drinking buddies thought it was great. But the weekend I was supposed to graduate from my master's degree, my dad actually flew in from London to come to the ceremony. And he was there and my mom was there, and it had been the first time I'd seen the two of them together in like a decade, and that kind of screwed me up. And so that night I went out to my local bar that I always used to go to, got blitzed, and was walking back to my off-campus apartment. I saw this beautiful convertible.
It needed mirrors kicked.
Oh my God, did it? It had Ohio plates on it, so the
even
fucker's
better.
not from around here. He's not even gonna miss it. And I went to town on that thing. And this is
Now, do you kick off one mirror or both?
oh, you have to do both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're gonna go all the way.
All right, you got to finish the job.
Yeah, and so this was like student apartment neighborhood, but someone thought I was, causing enough of a ruckus. Like you think things like this happen routinely, like oh yeah, someone's gonna break into a car or something like that. But someone called the cops, and it wasn't the campus police; it was city cops, and so. City cops roll up and the sergeant's there and he's trying to convince one of the officers to just kind of let me go. But, and I'm kind of walking in the other direction, like
Yes.
whistling,
I'll be on my way now,
Yeah.
gentlemen.
Pip, pip, cheerio, officers.
I'm from London,
And they weren't having any of that, so they cuffed me. They found the mirror, which I'd stupidly held, a couple feet next to me, like some type of
Trophy?
hunting
Yeah.
prize.
I'm
or
gonna mount
something.
this.
Yeah, right.
Go to his house. He's got mirrors all over the walls.
And so I spent a night downtown in jail in the drunk tank.
Like misdemeanor.
Yeah, and this was a Friday night, and this was the night before I was supposed to graduate and walk for my
Damn.
master's degree.
And you got family in town.
And I have family in town.
Shit.
And they took me, before the I guess I don't even know what the correct term is, the judge on duty, for instance, or
Magistrate
something,
or something like
the
that.
next morning. And
Yeah.
I said, I'm supposed to graduate today. Can you let me go? And they did. And that was the only reason I'm sure they let me go. Otherwise, I would have been there until Monday morning.
Yeah.
Because it was Saturday morning. And I walked back from the Justice Center to my off-campus apartment, which was probably about 2.5 miles.
Yeah.
And both my parents were there. They were frantic.
Did they know you were in jail?
No.
Okay.
They were frantic. It was only a couple of hours before the ceremonies were supposed to begin. And I said, "Where the heck have you been?" And I said, "Oh, I got arrested last night." And they said, "That's it. You can't drink safely anymore. This is it." And then the jig was up.
So your old man knew.
Oh, yeah. He knew. He knew. And I think my mom had a sense as well. But at that point, the jig was up. And then, graduation weekend, that was a Saturday. So I count my sobriety date as the Friday that happened, because although I sobered up on Saturday, I was still, feeling the effects of alcohol. And then that Sunday night, my old man took me to my first meeting.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So.
And so you raise your hand, say I'm new, and...
Yeah. It was a pretty small, intimate meeting. In fact, and I don't think they meet anymore. They might have a new location, but it was a candlelit meeting close to campus. They even handed out. They gave me my first big book, which is nuts. Thinking about it, and I was like, here I am, this, piss ass kid, a 24-year-old.
It's like out of a
fresh out of jail.
Yeah, right.
like a police video. The band when they had the candles and all that stuff, and then you got the book. That must have been an interesting.
So,
Oof.
do you think you belong there?
At that point, no.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, you think, okay, I fucked up and I got to be here now. But you listen to what they're talking about, you're like, yeah, but,
My dad was in town, because my sister was also graduating from college, from her undergrad, within a week or so. And we took a trip to New York City, and I remember him asking me, we're on the subway, and he said, have you opened the book yet? Have you opened the book? And I'm like, no, I haven't opened the fucking book. He's trying to get me involved in this fellowship. And I'm like, no, man, come on.
It's not time.
No. And I think, to his credit, that was really the start of it bringing us together, and my relationship with him to that day has really blossomed and changed, because I think he realized that that's what I needed, and he gently pushed it without being, authoritative, like, hey, you have to do this.
Yeah, well, he
Without
probably
being
knew.
a parent.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
right,
plus,
right.
but being in AA, he knows.
He should.
I can't
he
make
knew.
you get sober.
Yeah.
Right.
So I have to try to just keep suggesting, right?
Yeah.
So do you go back to meetings?
Yeah, so I was in Syracuse that summer. I did the 90 and 90. I lost a summer job. I had a summer job with the school, with like an education type job for a summer camp for city kids, but because I had a pending misdemeanor, which actually ultimately got
Tossed?
ACOD or whatever they do in New York, adjunctation of dismissal. I went back to pre-arrest status. Paid restitution to the poor gentleman from Shaker Heights.
Oh, is that where he was from?
Shaker Heights.
He was like, you motherfucker.
very
You
bougie.
broke my convertible. You'll pay.
Oh my God.
Pay I did. But I didn't have anything to do that summer, so I would go to maybe 2-3 meetings a day.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was,
Nice.
24-year-old kid, no summer job.
And you did a 90 to 90.
I did a 90
Did you
to
start
90
feeling
years
like
old.
you were in the right place?
Yes, pretty soon, because the thing was, when I went to AA as a young 24-year-old, I thought it's going to be like these guys that have been sitting under bridges,
Yes.
the low-bottom drunks. I'm not going to fit, but no one judged me. No one said, hey, kid, you've only been drinking for 5 or 6 years. Come on,
Right.
I've been drinking for 50 years.
Yeah. Did you find any people your own age?
A couple of young people, and that
I mean,
really
it is
helped.
mostly old people, and we,
is.
although that's starting to change, so you go to 90 and 90. Do you work the steps?
Not at that point.
Okay. Do you get a
Nope.
sponsor?
I did to the extent of having one of the regulars sit with me on a stoop outside the meeting and talk court with me for about an hour after every meeting.
So you
Really?
didn't have the pleasure of actually asking somebody to be your sponsor?
Not at that point, not yet. No, I was still filled with a lot of shame. I think for my arrest and.
Well, that and your plans when you were young, right? Not going to do this.
Right.
Right.
And, even, in order to receive my master's degree, and actually I was placed on probation from the school, the consequences were not legally per se, but I was placed on probation from the school and I had to meet with administrators and go through alcohol and drug.
But had you already graduated or no?
Well, no, I was getting my master's degree. So even though it was the weekend, they wouldn't release the
official
diploma.
Degree?
No, not yet.
Until you cleared all this stuff?
Right. And so I remember meeting with a drug and alcohol counselor, and he said to me, if you stop drinking for a period of time and you start drinking again, it's going to be like you never stopped.
Yeah, you pick up right where you left off.
And those words never left me. I mean, those have stuck with me
wonder
years
if they were
later.
one of us.
He could have been. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
To
it
be
is
able to
pretty
say
common
that.
knowledge, in alcoholic, whatever,
True.
medical community that it's progressive and you don't revert.
And he gave it to me straight. I mean, he said, "Look, if you start drinking again, it's going to be a big problem for you." And and then the other thing that was really hard for me to swallow was all of these people on campus that knew me as a student leader. They said, "Look, we had no idea that you were going through this," and that really just stung. So I think, you ask about doing the steps. For a long time, it was just enough coming to meetings and listening.
That whole ego check thing is tough.
A lot of shame.
Especially when you're young.
Yeah.
So you do the 90 and 90. What happens after that?
Yeah, so then I moved out of state, and I moved back with my mother, who lived in Pennsylvania at the time. And I was about 6 months sober, but I was doing the dry drunk thing, really, at that point.
Stop going to meetings and just figured I just won't drink.
I mean, I was going to meetings, but I wasn't getting better, right?
Okay.
I wasn't working the steps.
Yeah.
I was kind of miserable, lashing out, really.
Going for the stories?
Yeah, exactly. And so there was a gentleman there. I liked what he had to say. He was a college professor, and I approached him after a meeting. I said, "Look, I don't really know much about the action piece of AA, but I like what you have to say, and I'd like to, talk with you some more and work with you." And I asked him to be my sponsor, and he said yes.
Okay.
And that was really the turning point.
Okay, that was your jumping off point to really getting sober?
Yeah.
And so you start working the steps with this guy.
Yeah.
How is your second and third? A lot of people are predisposed to be okay with that. Some people are the exact opposite. They're like, fuck that shit.
And I didn't know this at the time. It was really hard because I didn't grow up in a religious family, and I didn't know this, but my sponsor didn't either. And so he and I talked a lot about this. And for him, he said, look, it's ego. You just have to let go. You have to say, and he asked me this question. He said, "Jacob, how have you been sober for these 6 months? Has it been you?" I said, "Fuck no."
Yeah. No, me was the drinking guy.
Right.
Yeah.
So he said, "Look, so then clearly there's something bigger than you that has helped you stay sober for these 6
That's important.
months."
Yeah. And, for some people, it's just the rooms.
Right.
Anything besides us.
I have a sponsee, and he's a great guy, and he's very honest. And he's just got his year chip. But his dealings with the second and third step, he was dead set against it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's okay. Let's just keep coming back. We'll read the 12 and 12. You'll get an idea of how open it is, that it's not a religious thing.
Yeah.
And it can be just anything. It can be the rooms. And he goes, well, if anything, I feel like, if there's a higher power, it's speaking through the people. I'm like, that's perfect.
That's
a
what
great
happens
start.
to me.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's how he got it. And slowly over time, it developed into something that he could do an 11th step with. He could have a conscious contact. And so, these people that come in and right off the bat, they totally dismiss it. I'm like, don't let that stop you from coming.
No.
Because that's going to change if you keep coming back.
Came willing.
And the further away you get from the drink, and then you start seeing how it works in other people's lives, and then you'll start recognizing it in your own life. And you'll go, holy shit, this is what they're talking about.
Some stuff starts to happen, and you look back, and you're like...
Is that kind of how it was for you?
It was more of a cautious skepticism.
Okay.
And so I wanted to be able to let go, but I wasn't quite sure that I was ready yet. And so it wasn't that I had written off the idea of a higher power or a God, so to speak, but it was ego, and there was some fear involved, and I didn't really have a burning bush moment.
Slow grind.
Yeah. It was just one of those things that happened organically.
Yeah. Yep. And that's sometimes is the best way, I think.
You can't even put your finger on when it happens sometimes.
Right.
Yep. Yep. And so you get into the fourth and fifth. Was that freeing for you or revealing?
It was both revealing and freeing. Oh, my goodness. And, the thing that I loved about this sponsor, and I wish we were still in touch, but I moved out of town and we weren't in touch. We haven't been in touch. He was all about urgency, and so he said to me, there's no point in waiting. We don't need to do, kind of some of the old school mentality of AA is do a step a year, or take a couple of months and do a step,
Yeah, my thing is when you're ready, you're ready.
Right.
And you'll know it. And your sponsor will know it. So if you've done a good third step, you're ready for the fourth step.
Yeah.
As soon as you do the fourth step, as soon as you're done, you do the fifth step. All right?
Right.
Is that what you guys did?
That's what we did. We did really 4, 5, and 6. 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Together at the same time.
I know with me, I didn't, I think maybe, God, I didn't even have it close to a year yet, but we did the fourth and fifth. And, my fourth, once you start writing stuff down, it kind of flows. You know what's fucked up in your life.
Yeah.
But what was really revealing to me was when I did the fifth step with him was you get to the exact nature of those character defects. And like 95% of mine broke down to fear. And I'm like, fear? Yep. I don't feel like I'm afraid of anything. And he's like, that's not what it is.
Yeah.
It's fear of not being accepted, fear of not being right, fear of not being smart enough, fear of what people think of you, for a million things. But it was all fear. And I'm like, holy shit. Just recognizing that was my problem.
Absolutely.
Was huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, okay, so what do I do about this? And it was all about letting go and having faith that things are going to work. The universe is going to get my back. As long as I do the right things for the right reasons, the right shit's going to happen for me. And so, that gave me the starting point to walk the walk. And then 6 and 7, then 8 and 9.
You're on your spiritual journey.
Yep. And so how was your experience with that kind of stuff?
The thing that was really powerful for me was when I started to make my list of amends, and clearly we know that some people you don't want to do amends to, right? And so I'm thinking of, an ex-girlfriend that I had in college that I did a lot of damage to. So ex-girlfriend in college, her parents I had to make a big amends to. I can remember a summer trip and that we all took together, and she and her family had a lake house in upstate New York, and they'd love to go out on the boat, every day and just hang out on the boat. And, I brought a Gatorade bottle, half full of vodka, half full of Gatorade, and I thought I could be slick and drink and nurse this bottle all day and get drunk around her family. And, of course, we're off swimming, and then the dad takes a big swig of the Gatorade bottle, spits it out, and is just like, what the hell?
It was like something out of a movie.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, good thing there was no mirrors on the boat.
no mirrors?
On the boat, yeah.
He lost his side view mirror coming back.
Oh, Jesus, yeah, wow.
But just stuff like that. And so,
So I kicked off his depth finder.
Did that instead.
The broken propeller, we had to row back to shore.
Yeah. So what did your girlfriend say?
Yeah, she was just so embarrassed. And,
I imagine.
I tried to make an amends to her, when I was done drinking, but the damage had been done. And I ended up writing a letter to her family and just mailing it. Not expecting to get a reply.
You got your side
Did
clean.
you?
Yeah.
Did you get a reply?
No. And I didn't want
They read it and
one.
they go,
Yeah, they probably threw it in the trash.
And who cares?
This guy said, take a look at this. Remember this drunk?
Yeah.
But I had many other people who suddenly were all of a sudden in my corner. I had a roommate in grad school that I was just awful to. I'd come home from the bars, throw up in the sink, and just leave it there, and just just caused so much of a nightmare for him to be my roommate when I was doing a lot of my heavy drinking. And I made an amends to him, and he said, you know what? I'm proud of you. Good for you.
That's what I got from a lot of people.
Me too.
Is they're like, you know what? Just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. And that was powerful, that it was humbling.
Oh, yeah.
for people to think that I deserve.
Yeah, because we make it up to be awful, right? And they're going to resent us for the rest of their lives because we're so important.
Yeah.
And they end up usually forgetting. And then when they figure it out and you tell them what's going on, of course they're happy for you. They want you to be over that stuff. So.
Yeah, and the biggest amends we usually have to make is to the people closest to us.
Right.
It's, especially moms and dads that just. I mean, my mother. First of all, my father was an alcoholic too. I grew up in an alcoholic home, and so my mother's life was just. I mean, he fucking wrecked shit, And then here's her son drinking more than the dad did. And she knows him driving drunk. She knows him coming. When I was living there, I was coming home drunk. And when I got sober and I made my amends to her, she was just like so fucking happy I was.
Relieved.
She goes, just don't stop going to the meetings. You know what I mean? Because she knew how much damage it had done. And, like you, I mean, I said to myself, I'm not going to be that. And there I was, more so than my dad, and he died of cirrhosis from drinking. But anyways, enough about me. Enough about me and my dad. Let's talk about you and your dad. So, do you hear from your dad still? I mean, was he like checking in on you as you were going through the stops and stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and living in another country, I don't get over there to see him as much as I'd like, but he's been over back and forth. He's seen me pick up soberversary chips.
Nice.
We've gone to meetings together in adulthood that have been very powerful. Whenever I go back to London to go visit him, I try to go to a couple meetings with him, which is always really powerful. Because
now, you've got 15 years. How much has your dad got?
What is it, 2024? I'd say he's got about 27 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Something like that. Mm-hmm. So, and he's not as involved in AA. He doesn't go to meetings, but he's done the steps. He's had sponsors over the years. So, he's been in the fellowship. He's not actively in the fellowship now, but, he's...
Get on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it was important, and you said that earlier in the show, if he'd been browbeating me and saying, being a big book thumper. And
right.
saying,
Well, that's when we rebel
This
more.
is all I need.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do is tell an alcoholic to do something.
Ugh.
They'll be like, I'm doing the exact opposite.
Especially if
just
it's
to
a
fuck
parent.
you. Yeah. So you do the 12 steps. You get some time under your belt. You work with others?
I have in the past. Yeah, I'm not working with anyone now. My track record is not good.
Doesn't matter.
Hey, you know what?
Sponsees.
Compare it to mine.
Yeah.
I have had 5 sponsees die on my watch.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I'm still at it, man. I'm
Still going.
going at it hard.
Yeah.
And every one of them, I kind of, you you examine yourself. You're like, Jesus. Like when you sponsor people that went out.
Yeah.
Did you kind of think, what did I do wrong?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and you said this before we got rolling. You said, look, we can talk about drugs, and drugs were not really a part of my story. I smoked some weed towards the end of my drinking, but I had to stop because I was getting hangovers from weed and not from alcohol. And my tolerance was so high that I said to myself, I don't want to do this.
Yeah, this is bullshit.
Yeah, come on. I'm drinking and not having a hangover and feeling fine the next morning, smoking weed. But the guys that I was working with, the first 2 also had drugs. And so that NAAA crossover was very hard.
It is difficult. And, one of the kids that I lost was a OD on fentanyl. And I don't really, heroin, when I was a kid, I grew up in the 60s, and heroin was something that, inner city people did. We never were exposed to it. Now it's everywhere.
Right.
And I'm sure when you went to college, it was all over the place, right?
Yeah.
That, Adderall, that shit was never
prescription,
around. Yeah,
prescription drugs.
None of that stuff was ever around when I was a kid. So, these younger guys come in and they've had experience with all that stuff. I have had no experience. I'm getting it through osmosis through these people, but to me, an addiction is an addiction, and the answers are the same. The mechanisms are the same. So when you lose somebody like that, or when somebody goes out, you're thinking, I'm not a very good sponsor.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't do this.
I was taught, you never say no to someone.
Right.
If someone approaches you and within your best.
You give whatever you can give them.
Right. And, but I haven't necessarily sort of been approaching people, so to speak.
Right.
There was a guy I was working with before COVID, right before COVID hit, and we were meeting, we were starting to go through the steps, and then COVID hit, and we lost touch, and so that just kind of organically shifted away.
Undid itself.
Yeah.
You still going to a lot of meetings?
Yeah, I do. Not as much recently. I've got young kids at home, and life gets lifey.
It does.
I'll tell you a quick story.
Sure.
It's a tragic story because I always think of this. My sponsor in Pennsylvania had young kids at home when he was working with me, quite young, and one of them died tragically from a rare respiratory disease. Like, she died in his arms when he was trying to take her to the hospital. And he was also the type of guy that would overexert himself,
Of course.
within the program, to the point where he would turn down spending time with his family because he was working with the latest guy or something like that. And that story scared the shit out of me once I became a dad, because I thought to myself, oh my gosh, you know what? I've worked really hard in my sobriety for these things to come true.
Yeah.
And it can be taken at any moment. And it's not that I, don't want to have a healthy relationship with the fellowship, but it's almost like a cautionary story.
It is. And you know what? To me, I've got, I'm coming up on 35 years, and I've had 2 sets of kids in sobriety. And for me, it's about balance.
Yeah. And finding it.
And the way we think, it's either all or nothing. We have that kind of initial reaction to things. And so, like you said, the guy was all in at the expense of, and I can see that happening with just about any alcohol.
I've come close to it just in recent history. Because
Yeah,
I was
so, I mean, you really
involved
gotta-
with it, and you gotta just.
That's why it's good to have a sponsor. You can say, is it me, or am I fucking just spending all my time in AA and ignoring my kids,
Or
my
am I
family?
avoiding something too?
Or am I not going to meetings because I feel like I'm already sober, I'm good, I'm going to raise my kids now.
Danger.
Yeah, so you got to have a little bit of both, and it's hard to find a balance sometimes.
Yeah.
It is.
But I mean, a guy like you, because my kids, I have twins that are 14 now, but at one point I had 4 kids, and I'm no spring chicken. I had the twins when I was 50, but it got to the point where I was like, I've got to commit to 2 to 3 meetings a week and no more. So a lot of times it was 2. Occasionally
That's where I'm
I'd
at.
throw another
Yeah.
one in, and 3 was good for me. Now that they got a little older, I'm sliding back into more, and then doing the podcast with Brett, and I've got 3 sponsees, and so I'm kind of sliding back into it. It's
I'm
gonna
down
be
to
my,
one sponsee.
It's going to be my
I got
retirement
13,
day.
9, and 7 at home.
Yep.
So.
And my twins just turned 4 this summer. So.
Oh, no shit.
Oof-da.
What do you got, a
Yeah.
boy and a girl?
2 girls.
Okay.
Awesome. Girls,
I got a boy and a girl, and they couldn't be more different.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I have a sponsor that I love dearly. That he's actually been on your show, and we're coming up on probably close to 10 years. That I've had him. So and I talk to him regularly. We either talk or text almost every day, and so I'm pretty connected to him. I would say that I have a home group that I was going to a long time. Again, it's hard because as a parent you've got that bedtime, right? And
Yeah,
so
you want to
it's
be there
tough.
for it. You want to be there for it.
I don't want to miss bedtime to go to a meeting,
Yeah.
so I try to squeeze in meetings. Other nights say to my wife, "Okay, can you do bedtime this night?" Like tonight. I said to her, "Look, I'm recording this podcast with these AA guys. Can you put the twins to bed?" Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And she understands. I think it's really, really important to have a dynamic where your partner or your spouse understands. My
Is on
wife
board,
my wife has never seen me drink. We've been together married for 10 years, together for almost as long as I've been sober. We had a sober wedding. I had family come in from Scotland and say, "You know what? I didn't think we were gonna have a good time because there's
Right.
no alcohol." But they said this has been
It's a dry wedding.
it's been the best damn wedding I've been to. So
There's no peat.
where's the whiskey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, with long-term sobriety, there are changes in your life, whether it be running a business, having a family, that sometimes you can dedicate more time to the fellowship. Sometimes you got to take part of that time out. As long as you don't let it go completely,
Yeah.
As long as
And
you
there
keep
are
it,
so
and like you
many-
say, one good way is to keep talking
Yeah.
to at least one.
And there's so many ways to do service too, that don't take up a lot of time. And so it's just, like Mark said, it's just finding that balance. But
Right.
it is
Some people listen to the
important.
Glum Lot podcast.
Absolutely.
Who knows?
I like to get out to different meetings.
Yeah.
Kind of do a sampler, so to speak,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
an appetizer sampler.
Yeah,
Yeah.
meet all new people, hear different
I'm
stories.
working on that.
Yeah.
I'm working on that. I want.
Yeah,
to
I
get
just
around a little
recently
bit.
I came to this realization: I'm going to the same 3
Yeah.
meetings every week, and that they're all good people, but you know their story, you can tell it. You
Right.
know. Then so I got a young sponsee who's been taking me to a young person's meeting. And of course, I'm the oldest person there, but that doesn't matter to them. They don't give a shit. But it's just nice to meet other people, so, like you say. But well, we're kind of at the end of our time here. So, Jacob, we'd like to
Flies.
thank you so much for coming on. And great.
Any words of
to meet
wisdoms you would like to impart?
Just one or two things. I mean, I'm thinking about, in the 12 and 12 when I was new coming into AA, the line that stuck with me was the person that's drowning and they want to grab the life preserver, and when I was young, in my early and mid 20s, I thought to myself, I just need to get this, I just need to give it everything I have, and then the other thing that I was thinking was that, again, for young people, that are worried that AA is not a place for them, give it a shot. Give it a try. You don't need to have the long 10, 15, 20-year drinking career to feel that you fit in. And the wonderful thing is no one's going to tell you don't belong.
And there's groups out there, and if you reach out, we can certainly point you in that direction. So,
Yep.
yeah, awesome.
All right. So until next time on the Glum Lot podcast, I'm Mark.
I'm Brett.
I'm Jacob. Thank you.
As we wrap up another episode of the Glum Lot podcast, we want to extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you who tuned in today. Navigating the path to recovery from alcohol and other substances is a journey filled with challenges, triumphs, and self-discovery. Remember, we're not affiliated with Alcoholics Anonymous, but we're here to provide a safe space for open conversations about the complexities of recovery. Your stories, courage, and resilience inspire us and our listeners alike. If you or someone you know is on the transformative journey, know that you're not alone. Join us next time as we continue to explore the diverse facets of recovery. Until then, stay strong, stay connected, and remember that each day is a step towards a brighter, sober tomorrow. Thank you for being part of the Glum Lot community.